Hello, friends. Welcome to Trending. Today is Thursday, June 8th. It's about 9:30 as we're rolling this morning, and we're back. We were gone last week. Joe, you were at middle school camp.
Yeah, man. It was
Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was. It was awesome. Many hemp and homespuns there. And we had a great time on the campground. We just got some good students here at Ridgepoint.
Yeah.
Other churches do too. I'm not trying to make a point there, but I was just impressed with how much fun they had, how attentive they were, how they befriended one another. It was just a good time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I was exhausted when I got back, but it was a good time. It was a good time to be there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like we've been gone for a while, so glad to be back. Thanks for tuning in today if you're watching or listening, wherever you are. As always, a lot going on in the world, Joe, but really the thing at the top of the list for pretty much most of the country, a lot of the world, is all this air pollution stuff.
Right.
Some of the images coming out of New York and some other bigger cities around the country, it's just crazy with the air pollution that's coming from the wildfires up in Canada, some of the worst conditions on record for a long, long time. And so there's just a lot of people trying to figure out, is it even safe to go outside? Like, do you need some kind of air filter in your house? We were chatting beforehand that Kansas City is one of the areas that's kind of in the orange zone. So they're kind of one of the newer big cities that's kind of on the map for this whole thing that's going on. So it's just crazy, Joe.
I know. And it seems like when do we actually call this thing an emergency, right?
Yeah.
I think some people just downplayed it at first.
Mm-hmm.
But they started canceling baseball games. They even canceled the WNBA game in New York yesterday. And it's like, oh man, now this is serious. We're canceling sports.
Yeah, it is. And I just read this morning that I think earlier this week, it was I think I'm getting this right. It was the hottest temperature ever recorded in Canada earlier this week. And that's what's causing some of these fires, is it's been really unusually warm, unusually dry. There's been some lightning strikes and fire just spreads really easily. So that's happening up there, spreading down here, and it's just causing some trouble with the air quality. So, Joe, this is one of those things where I think a lot of Christians don't really know how to respond to things like this with the environment, like this kind of a hot button thing that we're not really sure how to talk about it, how to talk about it with our faith and politics and all that kind of stuff. We don't want to get into the argumentative side of things, but the Bible is pretty clear that God made the earth,
right? And
part of our job is to take care of it.
Yeah.
So I thought for some background, we can read the USMB Confession of Faith, what it says about environment and how we should care for it. So if you don't know, Ridgepoint is a Mennonite Brethren church, right? And so we have this kind of collection of documents, this binding confession of faith that all the USMB churches agree upon. So this is kind of our official stance of what we believe about this. So I thought that'd be helpful just to kind of get us started here.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it says, we believe the universe and everything in it belongs to God the Creator. God has entrusted the care of the earth to his people, all who are responsible for managing its resources. Good stewardship uses the earth's abundance to meet human need, but resists the unjust exploitation of the earth and its peoples. All God's gifts are to be received with thanksgiving and used responsibly. So again, kind of the main theme there is God made everything. Part of our job is to make sure that we take care of it and don't waste it or don't destroy it, right?
Right.
So I guess maybe, can you give us some background, Joe? Why is this a divisive issue in the church? Why do people have it seems like this is one of those hot button things that people don't want to talk about. Why is that so?
I'll do my best. And all cards on the table. So I got my Doctor of Ministry degree from George Fox University. At the time that I graduated, it was the only seminary, so master's degree available for Christian earthkeeping.
Okay.
It's because they're located in Oregon. Oregon has their own environmental issues with the logging industry. There doesn't seem to be the replenishing of trees, which was taken for paper and logging and things like that. And so many people who live there, who are Christian, lean on this long tradition, probably from the beginning of how do we care for the earth as part of our service and worship to God.
Yeah.
And so I come from a perspective, and other people come from different perspectives. It's fine. Once again, ideas have consequences, right? Mm-hmm. And it just seems like there's a brand of a doctrine called eschatology, which is the how things will end, the end times, where a certain branch of Protestantism has such a low view of the created order. They feel like because they take they daisy chain a few verses together, that this current world is not going to be renewed or redeemed. It's going to be discarded.
Yeah.
And something's going to replace it instead, right? And there's certainly some apocalyptic language in places like Revelation and 2 Peter. I think we actually get into the weeds, trust good scholarship, We're supposed to read that with a certain lens. There's a certain genre of literature from the Mesopotamian world called Enochian literature. And so if you want to do a deep dive on that, go ahead and have at it. Right. But it's one of those things where like, we'll daisy chain a couple verses together, and it, so from my perspective, it looks like this world is going to be discarded anyways. So why should we spend money, give any effort towards the rescuing, the preserving of such things? This actually probably comes from more of a religious philosophy than it does biblical text itself.
Okay.
And that's okay, because I think anytime we have beliefs, there's a mixture of sources that ultimately cobble together our beliefs.
Yep.
But there is a religious philosophy, we call it deism or deism. It's actually something quite native to the American experiment. When a lot of our founding fathers talk about God, what we can tell from their writings, from scholars who've tried to investigate this, do an autopsy of their beliefs, the God that they maybe are praying to or leaning upon is not a theistic God who's dynamically involved with the events of the world.
Yeah.
But one who is removed, who created everything, kind of wound up creation like a watch, and is kind of watching it from afar and letting it run its course. The God upstairs type of thing.
Yeah.
This was a good seabed for democracy because we don't have to appeal to the church, to those who speak on behalf of God for political discussions now, because we've been given reason from this God. And we can, by popular rule, by argument and debate, by synthesis of thought, we can govern people. It's still good to go to church because it kind of keeps your personal morals in check. But in regards to God dynamically involved, it's not. And so this is actually the seedbed for this type of posture towards the created world.
Okay.
That idea seems to feed into at least a bit of the hesitancy to embrace some of the loud voices of ecology and those who want to talk about climate change and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, there's certainly scientific shops that say climate change, it seems to be a politically motivated thing. It seems like the climate goes in cycles. You hear that from time to time. So there seems to be a rivalry in scientific guilds. There's rivalry in religious guilds. We talk about what does it mean to be people on the earth. And so I think that's some of the framework of why this is a hotly debated thing. It's just worth noting that there was some polls done through the 80s and 90s, and evangelicals were 10% less likely to engage in climate preservation. And it seems to be because of these ideas. Well, it's all going to burn anyways. So why bother dealing with that sort of thing? So,
So I guess no matter where people land on that spectrum, whatever they think about end times, there is still this call, this responsibility for us to care for the earth. Like there are pretty blatant verses that's part of our job. So I guess if someone lands anywhere on the spectrum, I guess how do we reckon that? How do we reconcile those verses with wherever you land on that spectrum?
Right. I guess what I would say is, as you worship and follow God, and as your soul's being formed by those habits, and as you look at how climate is being impacted in the world around us, what is the next best thing to do? And if your mind, like in your discernment, is to do the exact same thing you did before you were engaged in the research stuff, okay, it's fine. Keep worshiping God, keep being in the daily habit of following Jesus, and be open to have your mind changed or not. I guess I would just say, like, what's one of the resources that I started to wade into these waters with is someone said, I just love it. It was a theopoetic point, so you can't hang your hat totally on it. But God's first language was sky and land and water and fish and birds. Like before humans, according to Genesis 1's account, before humans ever been given a mandate to walk on the earth, he's like molding these creatures around us. And he's setting boundaries for land and sea. And when those things are adjusted, if we can prove that through science, that we're doing something that's impacting some of these things that God had in his mind and called it good. I think that gives us a pause. At least I think that's a biblically informed, a worship informed ecology and say, this creator God, he's not just the sovereign God, he's not just the saving God, he's also the creator God. He seems to be in covenant with his creation too. And so how can we as co-workers with God continue to love the world and call it good and continue to make it good as he intended from the very beginning, right? So
that's a good, I hadn't really thought about that before, but it's true that sky and water and animals predate us. Like that is an interesting thing that I haven't thought about with this angle before. That is interesting.
Right. I think it was Martin Luther King, or maybe it was Martin Luther. It was one of the Martin Luthers who said, if I knew the world would be destroyed tomorrow, I'd still plant a tree today. Now, do you mean that literally? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I think that does, I think, represent a posture of Christian ecology, which is, sure, we may be removed from the world before it's ultimately destroyed. That doesn't mean that until that happens, we shouldn't do things that help the very fragile ecosystem that we have. Do our little part. Does our singular little part add up to profound change? No. But I think that it would be the most worshipful thing to do would be to love this world at the level, to seek to love this world at the level that the one whom we worship does.
Yeah.
And I think that leads us to a lot of great decisions that we can make collectively in the days ahead.
So part of what I think about this, Joe, I think most of us, like there's kind of with any issue like this, there are people who, this is all they care about. They go all in on this issue. They, they devote a lot of time. They probably donate a lot of money. They volunteer, whatever. They're really involved on the environment. Then there are people who maybe they think it's all a hoax. They don't think it's real, or maybe they believe it's real, but they're just busy and this isn't a priority to them, which I think there are things like that all of us fall into. So I think part of what being a Christian in today's culture, when there's so many problems, right? Like there's some people who are all in about pro-life, or they're all in about whatever. Like there's so many big causes that I think a lot of us, we want to be good Christians. We want to be good citizens. We want to be good friends, good people. But I think there's just so many big issues that sometimes, even if it's something we care about, it's hard to know how to actually get involved or how to help, whether it's climate or any other issue. We're busy. We're trying to be good fathers and good husbands. How can we care about so many things, right? There's this like compassion fatigue thing that I think is it's real. I think all of us feel it already. It probably will only get worse. So maybe if someone's watching and they're like, like we need to care for the earth, and I care about a lot of other things, and I'm busy.
Right. Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, we can't be experts on everything.
Right.
We've got to lean on other communities, institutions that are engaging in these conversations, calling together policy suggestions for lawmakers on both sides of it. I think that we should do a couple of things. I was in a conversation with somebody on a climate issue not long ago, and they said there seems to be equal number of studies on both sides that our world is being dramatically shaped by climate change, and then equal amount of articles that say it's not.
Yeah.
But I had a feeling this was a convenient thing for this person to say, that they probably hadn't read more than one article on either side. And this is not to pick on them, but I think that we tend to stretch the truth on our understanding on a thing in order to get through that hard and awkward conversation, just to kind of stop the conversation.
Yeah.
I think instead, wouldn't it be lovely just to say, I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
And to say one of two things from there. I don't have time to pick this topic up. Or to say, I would love to engage with some inquiry on both sides. One of the things that Kathy Glenn from good old Sterling College, alma mater, Queen of the Kansas Plains. That's right. Her email signature, I think it was a quote from Aristotle. To paraphrase, it says, it's actually a sign of maturity that you can entertain an intellectual thought without having to agree with it or believe it. I think, unfortunately, a lot of times we get causes thrown at us, and communicators are quite adept at shaping those appeals to us in a way that kind of goes through our discernment filters, and it just gets us into fight or flight. To call to arms instead of actually grappling with an issue. And so I guess I would say, wouldn't it be great if we gave ourselves the practice of the next time Aunt, Uncle so-and-so, cousin so-and-so has a hot take, that we're not like, okay, I'm already digging in for my response to say, oh, that's interesting. And then to say very calmly after considering it, say, I think differently. Wow, I think differently than you do. But do so in a very calm way, to put down our weapons and try to reason together. I've been in some pretty interesting conversations the last 5-10 years in this, climate that seems to be pretty abrasive and divisive. And when the temperature is cool in the conversation, it's actually quite an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
And I think that we grow because of that. Yeah. There's a great book out there. Carlos Whitaker just published a book called How to Human. And he gives 3 practices on how do we dig ourselves out of this fight and flight for or against scarcity complex that we're in. Yeah. And actually to try to embrace people who we don't agree with again. And so it might be a good summer read for as many of us as possible to pick up Carlos's book and also to just engage in some of the ancient Christian practices of peacekeeping in order for us to have more thorough, calm, informative conversations instead of trying to clobber one another with the latest study that helps support our already insurance side. Yeah.
All right, well, that seems to be the recurring thing we always come back to, Joe, is like, just be a good person.
Do people need to listen to us week by week? What if we just
the world would be so much better.
I mean, we just come to the same point. I think it is our personality. I do envy people who like to get in debates. I'm not a big debater. I don't like how worked up I can get, or how lost I feel at times with knowing how to respond. But people who do that, like they have a gift and penchant for it. The Enneagram 8s out there, like they actually are very helpful. Yeah. But it seems like it needs to be done with, like anything else, all that gift needs to be used within reason. Yeah. Right. And so I think you and I are just like, I don't know, we're not like eager. We don't light the torch and we grab the pitchfork out the door every morning. Yeah. And so I think it's natural that we would come to this conclusion.
Yeah. Grace and peace, man. Grace and peace. All right. Well, whether or not you're a grace or peace person, that's where we come from. We'll just try to get along with everybody. Yeah. Make the world a better place.
Yeah, so that's right, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was good, Joe. Thanks for your insight there. Thanks again to you, for our friends watching or listening. Grateful for all of you. Hope you have a great week. Riverfest, Hamilton. There's a lot going on in Wichita. So
there is. It's good stuff.
Have a great weekend, whatever you do. We hope to see you on Sunday.
Yeah. See you next time.
See ya.